Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my budget turbo build on this Nissan Hardbody. Okay, so here we are looking at the KA24E in this 1996 Nissan Hardbody. We're going to go ahead and start from the hot side and work our way to the cold side, and then I'll talk about some fuel management. So on this, I have, honestly, I do not know what size turbo it is. It came with the truck, just wasn't installed, had the wrong header, had the wastegate that I've got on it. But yeah, it came with the truck, so I don't know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's just an eBay turbo, just a T3, T4 housings. The turbo is bolted onto a Rev 9 cast turbo manifold made specifically for the KA24E. It's a top mount, obviously. So underneath there, right down through there, is a tile sport wastegate. Kind of shadowy under there. Grab a light real quick. As I was saying, underneath this manifold bolted to it is a tile sport wastegate. As far as I know, it is a genuine tile sport. It could not be, but it functions, so I don't really care either way. Like I said, came with the turbo. I'll show you another view from it over here. Right down there. And as you can kind of tell, bolted onto the back of it is just a little screamer pipe dump tube coming off of that. Since we're back here talking about exhaust, this is a custom downpipe that I mocked up and a friend of mine put together for me. I just bought the plate, the flange plate, and gasket off of eBay, and then I bought two 90-degree elbows just from AutoZone, and we welded those together, and they make honestly a pretty tidy little downpipe right here, which just dumps right there under the cab until I actually get more of an exhaust put together for it. Moving from exhaust to the oiling system, I bought a universal turbo oil feed and return line kit off eBay, which ties into, we may not be able to see it on camera, but I do have photos of it. It goes down and underneath here to where the oil filter connects to the block. There is a sensor in there that you take out. You can just barely see it down there. There's a sensor that you take out, a T-fitting that you put in. You run your sensor in the T-fitting. You run the oil feed line through the T-fitting. And my one's actually got 4, so you block off the other one. That feeds us oil. On the drain side, again from the universal kit, is just AN line that runs down to the oil pan. I purchased a Weld in AN bung that we welded into the oil pan, and then it runs an AN line up and into the bottom of the turbo. So that all came in the kit except for the steel bung that we welded in. And yeah. While we're still up here, we've got our just simple vacuum line that runs down to the wastegate. This wastegate has a pretty light spring in it, just a red spring, which is about 5 pounds of boost. And I just have a Spectre filter on there, just because I don't have inner fenders, and I don't need the turbo eating a rock or something while I'm on the road. Moving into the cold side, this is just a 90 that adapts from 2 to 2.5 with clamps. This is 2.5-inch intercooler tubing. This came from Summit Racing. It goes into a 2.5-degree 90. Runs into my Mishimoto intercooler. I believe this is from their Z line. there you can just barely see. It is a Mishimoto. Those are some custom little brackets that I had to make up to mount it. But it fits in perfectly where the air conditioning condenser was. So that is something to note, that I did delete AC to fit this turbo in. Running through the intercooler is another 90 on this side. It runs straight up through just another short little piece of pipe and into a 45-degree coupler. That is 2.5 on this end and 3.5 on this end, because rather than weld a hat or a 90 on top of my throttle body, I opted for a cheaper method. So this is an intake hat off of a 4.3 liter Chevy V6 that came in some of the 90s and early 2000s S10s, the Blazer, the Sonoma, the Jimmy, all of those sorts of things. So I simply plugged this up, drilled these holes. These are my original wing nuts that are on there that hold it down there. And yeah, I'm actually very impressed with how it turns out. I think it looks pretty clean. I also, and I'll show some pictures of this, have the stock air intake temperature sensor right up under there for the hardbody, so it is still able to get its air intake temperature. And because this is an OBD2 vehicle, I can read that off my scanner if I ever need to know what temperature we're running. Moving on to the only fuel management that this truck has to run on, I have added an adjustable rising rate fuel pressure regulator. I believe I got this on Amazon. It wasn't the cheapest one I could buy, and it wasn't the most expensive. So it is, it also runs into, this is an adapter right here that allows you to run it into the factory fuel rail. So this has set to a slightly higher fuel pressure than is stock. And as it sees boost through this vacuum line, it's raising the fuel pressure. And I can verify that all of this is running properly because on the downpipe, I did go ahead and buy a nice proper AEM Wideband O2 sensor, which runs across the back there into the cab. The other thing that's in down here, I'll touch on vacuum lines really quickly. The hardbody has, let's see, there's 1, 2, and then there should be 3, 4 vacuum ports over here. This one on the front, I literally just have capped off. Yes, there's probably other ways to do it, but this is working fine. This one is running my boost gauge in the cabin. This one is running the fuel pressure regulator. This great big one, of course, goes to the brake booster. This one, I'm not sure on, but it seemed to run worse when this was off, so we went ahead and covered it. And it's running very happily with it on there. Don't mind some of these that are unconnected. It could use a little bit of tidying. But as it is right now with this setup on the vacuum lines, it is running very nicely. So, moving into the cab of the truck, the only 2 gauges that I have in here are the AEM Wideband on the left and a nitrous brand boost gauge. I picked that up at Harbor Freight. It's like $20 and it's been working. It also lights up. So they are mounted in literally just a piece of cardboard with some tape over it. Budget build. It worked, so that's where they're living right now. Since we're in here, I'll go ahead and show the power for those guys. I've used add-a-fuse systems. And I want to say this fuse runs the power on both the wideband and the boost gauge. This one is actually running my LED underglow, which is controlled by this switch right here. So yeah, just to recap on literally how cheap I did this thing. Rev 9 manifold from eBay. AEM wideband from Summit. Exhaust pipe from AutoZone. turbo from essentially Facebook Marketplace, oil lines from eBay, all of the silicone elbows were from eBay, the intercooler tubing was from Summit Racing. The intercooler is a Mishimoto, but I got it from Facebook Marketplace. And the fuel pressure regulator was from Amazon. And the boost gauge, which, I mean, is not totally necessary, was from Harbor Freight. So, yeah, none of this is super high quality stuff. None of it's super expensive. Probably the most expensive pieces were the Manifold, which was probably $170, and the wideband from Summit, which was probably $180 or $190. But if you're going to do this, it's really recommended that you run that wideband, just that way you know how your engine is running. That's my budget turbo setup on this Nissan Hardbody. To answer a couple of questions that I'm sure are going to come in, how much power are you making? I don't know, because we didn't dyno it, because to tune it, all we did was drive around and watch the AFR numbers in and out of boost and adjust the fuel pressure regulator from there. And it keeps everything super clean, a little bit rich, but definitely in the safe zone. How much did this cost? Well, because I had some of the pieces already, and I've been accumulating a lot of the pieces over time, used from Facebook Marketplace, stuff like that, I probably only spent $600 or $700 on this whole thing. If someone were to recreate it, I would imagine you'd probably spend more like $800 on it if you were to try and replicate this. But of course, that just depends on what kind of deals you're going to get. If you're going to buy everything brand new, you're probably going to spend like $1,000. But that's how you do things cheap, buy stuff used. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there's something you want me to take a closer look at or talk about, any questions you have, definitely let me know and I can answer those or make a whole video about it. But consider liking this video, give me a subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content in the future. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time.